Hi everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about Kairos, written by Jenny Erpenbeck and translated by Michael Hofmann. I was planning to read some non-fiction book for a change of pace, but the last few weeks has been so busy that my 9 to 5 job are turning to 9 to the next day kind of job for days, and I had a massive headache because of that. So I figured I stay on fiction for a while I'm slowly recovering. Kairos is the winner of this year's International Booker Prize, a very hit or miss award, with last year winner Time Shelter being a very underwhelming read, and the only good title I remember that I really like is Han Kang's The Vegetarian that won the 2016 award. But this book looks promising with a start that calls back to Albert Camus' Strangers, with a man asking the main character, "Will you come to my funeral?" A strange question to ask because she's alive and well. He asked her 3 times before she answered yes, and a few months later, on the main character's birthday, he died, which sucks for her because instead of congratulating her on her birthday, his son called her to tell her about his death instead. And unlike what she said to him, she didn't come to his funeral. Instead, she asked what songs will be played and played those songs on YouTube at her place, complete with mid-roll ads and everything. Put a pin on this event because this will be very important to remember at the end of the book. Then a few months later, boxes of his items arrived at her house thanks to her current husband. The boxes was left at the house until it really felt like it's too much of a bother to leave them alone, and she started sifting through them, through the memories that Katarina had with Hans since the first time they met when she was 19. And because it made her feel nostalgic, she decided to also go through her own mirror collection of these items like the book said. A long time ago, the papers in his boxes and those in her suitcase were speaking to each other, before it all became just another memories in the passage of time. They both met on a Friday, July 1986. It was raining and she was waiting for the rain to stop on a bus stop. He came out of the bus and while they were waiting for the rain to stop, they glanced at each other a total of 3 times. They walked to the same direction once the rain stopped because they're going to the Hungarian Cultural Center and because the place was closed early. He asked if she wanted to get some coffee, which she said yes. He is Hans, an old man 10 years older than her father, an aged author that also works in radio who already have a wife and a son. And she is Katrina, daughter of Erika Ambach that according to him looks like a 16 years old girl. Their age gap is so big that for comparison, he took his first step when Hitler is in control and she took her first step long after the coward took his own life. She obviously has a teenage crush on him and he obviously had some creepy intention to her. They were supposed to go their own way, but he remembers that his wife and kid is at the country away from home, so he invited her back to his place, which she accepted. They talk a little bit while he's looking around the house at his thing, dresses of his wife and son and his own life. Then he played some music, some Chopin, Schubert and Bach, and prepared wine for them to drink together. They went out for dinner to his regular restaurant, then got back to his house again, where they had sex on his and his wife's bed. The storytelling is one of the most interesting storytelling I've read. It feels like both characters become a narrator that added to the flow of the storytelling, his side and her side, in short little sentences. And as with Intermezzo that I just finished reading, the story is also written using Cormac McCarthy's no punctuation style, so everything blends together into sentences and paragraphs. Thankfully, I just finished reading Intermezzo before this, so I can just go into it without having to get used to the writing style. They decided to go out in secret. He told her that his wife comes first, this other woman is also saying from the radio station is his second priority, and she, the 19-year-old girl he just slept with, is on the lowest of his priority. She don't mind this as long as she was not abandoned. She's still young enough to romanticize faithful meeting and true love. He took her to his office, passing by a few overreacting Americans who accidentally passed the border from west to east, scared that they'll be taken and burned in a communist cauldron before the American tourists went back to the west easily. Then they continued their journey to the radio station. There are many more records at his office, including those that used to be banned in Berlin. She took a photo from him from the office that she'll bring for a short travel to Budapest. She went to Budapest for a trip with her friend Christina. They used to be best friends in school that were glued to each other, often visiting each other's home, having sleepover all the time. But when they were 14, Christine changed school and they only grew further apart since then. So they decided to take some time off to go on this trip together. Katarina bought Hans' book, Turning Back, to go with their journey, and she and Christina catch up with each other during their trip. They stayed at a friend of Katarina's mother place, and unfortunately for Christina, there's not much she got from the journey because Katarina's mind is still preoccupied with Hans. Christina at least found out that her friend is now dating a married man 34 years older than her, which she found to be crazy. Rightfully so. Thankfully for both of them, the trip finally ended and Katarina can go back to Hans. Back at home, she needs to hide her relation even more compared to when she was on the trip. Her mother had a small birthday party with around 15 guests, and from that small sample, about half of them know Hans. So she cannot say anything hinting at their relationship since he's a married man. She can't even visit his home that often because she can only come when his wife and son is not in the house for a definite amount of time. So they try to make it an event when she visited. She dresses up for him, she cooks for him, and often she draws for him. And because besides younger Hans liked art, he often brings her to see art. They went to visit an art gallery depicting Theseus' journey with the Minotaur, one of the weirdest Greek tragedy complete with bestiality, and he showed her books with collection of Picasso painting. Later on, Katharina sent for an official approval to cross the border so she can visit her grandmother who lived in West Berlin. A grandmother she usually only hears through very expensive international call from East Berlin to West Berlin. And she finally got it, which will make this the first time in her life she sets foot in West Berlin. She spent most of the time before her departure together with Hans, even going to cafes and watch movies together at places where people who know his wife might witness. The storytelling so far is amazing. It is slow and very deliberate, and it still doesn't forget that this is still a look into the past with how sometimes there's little reminder of the items that adult Catherine is currently sifting through without telling us. Photo they share to each other, paperback from where she bought Hans' book, postcard and letters they send to each other, a page torn from a book, and a book that have only one page torn. There is so much subtlety to the storytelling, not only on the fuck-up relationship between Katharina and Hans, that shows the difference between the delusional old man who is trying to recapture his youth and the naivety of an experienced younger. But there's also things that slowly reveal what life was like back then, when the Berlin Wall still stands like today's Israel apartheid wall. Tourists will never be able to know the difficulties since society laws don't actually involve them, but for the people in it, just contacting your own family can be a nightmare despite them being on walking distance sometimes. And now for Katharina to visit her grandmother, she had to go through the building that inspired the game Paper Please, where they checked all her documentation again and she was given visa for temporary permit and a form that she will have to use for her to go back to the east. And after going through the metal gates and a couple of trains, she arrived at Cologne and met with her West Berlin side of her family. In West Berlin, she's surprised by the appearance of beggars in this side and how casually her own family mocks them. And during her short time there, she saw many things. The stores that always have bargain all day long, until item prices can be different depending on what time you visited. The Dionysus Museum and even hidden sex toy store that traumatized her young mind. And as usual, she misses Hans so much during this trip that when she goes back to the east, she went to Hans during his holiday on a beach with his wife and son there. They even went away for a bit to have some outdoor activity, getting more and more reckless with their relation. For Katharina, there is a reason why she romanticized fate, a series of events that feels destined, because she was born in this time, because her grandmother managed to escape from Germany in 1933, because the fascists in Spain didn't manage to capture him, because no one in France betrayed him to German. Because of this series of events, he lived, and as a result, Katharina was born. And now here she is with Hans, on a beach out in the open where his wife and son might saw them. More and more people know about their relationship, like Katharina's friend who she has distanced herself from because she kept saying that Hans is using her, and her father that supported her decision for her to be with the still married old man because apparently there's a lot she can learn from the old author. But after a month or so of their relationship, little cracks do form. She started doing things to her that she's not fully comfortable with. He, for some reason, showed her pictures of women he had affair with in the past, making her question if she's just another one of his affair. Of course, in the minute detail, these red flags can often be seen as insecurities, which is exactly how Katharina interprets them, pushing herself into pleasing him even more so she's not thrown out and keeping all her feelings closer to herself no matter what the people surrounding her says. But Hans cannot hide his relationship with Katharina for long because of how much he's with her everywhere with everyone. Ingrid, his wife, finally found photos and letters and after a while decided to kick him out of the house. And since he's a writer who has not been writing for a long time, there is only so much money he had left for his days. Thankfully, he at least had a place to stay, a small house that he got from a friend who escaped to the west. Him and Katharina stayed there for a while in that small house, until Katharina had to leave for her internship at Frankfurt for a year, where their relationship grew more and more difficult to sustain. The story is the distillation of certain time period in Katharina's life, while we often associate through Hans' lens, but Katharina is young and life has more in store for her compared to Hans who is at the sunset of his life. And from their different in life experience because of their 34-year-old gap, We see life from an old man from a different generation compared to life as a younger from the generation that only can see traces of history that the previous generation wanted to get rid of, wanted to forget. And obviously the story is also about an exploration of grooming through the lens of the groomer and the groom. Both of them are not written as villain and victim in the story because that's not what happened in the mind of those experiencing them. The old man truly believes that he's doing this for them and creating an identity that is made of two people. And the younger believes the old man because she hasn't experienced much outside of the identity made by the old man. And you can see Hans' lack of self-awareness from the story without having to turn him into a cartoon villain. From how he is trying to shame Katarina for being with another guy while he is still begging for his wife Ingrid to take him back, telling the little girl that he is not doing enough and not sacrificing enough for the relationship to stay strong, even though the old man can never give her a family and a home filled with warmth and joy because he is married. Or when he say things like his pleasure would not be so intense if Katarina's face did not look so pure, and think that this is romantic. So there is no way a guy with such totality of lack of self-awareness can ever portray himself as being at fault or a villain. And you can still remember at the start of the book, it's not Katarina being cold towards someone asking if she will come to their funeral. It's just Hans still being manipulative even at the end of his life, which shows how he has stopped maturing as a person after a certain period point in his life before he even met Katarina. The story can be very slow, but it's so well written. Everything about it just made sense in the context of what the story is trying to tell. If you don't mind a slow burn, give this one a chance. I give this a 4.5. What do you think? Let me know if I miss anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.